There was an old lake by the name of Silver Mist Lake, with deep blue waters. No one visited it anymore. It was surrounded by dense forest, and the air had a slight chill. Evening was falling. The clouds were darkening, and a strange rustle floated in the wind. Naomi was taking some shots by the lakeside with her DSLR camera. Suddenly, she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned. No one. Then, her camera turned on by itself, and the shutter clicked on its own. Startled, Naomi checked the camera, but the pictures were strange. Her shadow was moving before her. Naomi called Julian. "Julian, my shadow was moving before me, and this is not a joke." Julian came over that night, and the two of them went back to the same spot. Julian brought an infrared camera and an EMF reader. As soon as they reached the lake, the EMF reader went straight into the red zone. Then a cold gust of wind blew, and someone whispered Naomi's name softly behind her. "Naomi." They both turned. No one. Julian took a photo with the infrared camera. On the screen appeared a blurry figure. The shadow of a woman. But her head was upside down. Julian panicked, but Naomi kept staring at the camera. "Julian. That wasn't my shadow. That was something else, and it's connected to me now." Naomi returned home. She scanned the photos from that day again and zoomed in. Then she saw an old figure in the shadow, someone holding something in their hand, a letter. The next day, Naomi went to the city library and dug through old case records. In 1952, a woman named Margot Bellamy had died at Silver Mist Lake. It was said to be suicide, but her body was never found. Naomi found a photo of Margot. The same face. The same upside-down head. The same shadow-like figure. And along with it, a document. Margot's last letter, which was never posted. "They said I was mad, but my shadow never followed me. It led me. It wanted to be me." Julian stayed at Naomi's house the next night. In the middle of the night, Naomi woke up. She walked into the other room. Julian wasn't on the bed, but the camera in the room was on, and the screen showed live footage. Julian standing by the lake. Eyes closed, arms stretched out. Frightened, Naomi ran toward the lake. When she reached, she found Julian's bag, camera, and shoes, but Julian was missing. And then on the surface of the water, Julian's shadow appeared, but there was no body in the water. The shadow looked at Naomi, and slowly, smiled. Naomi returned, but now everything around her had changed. In the mirror, her shadow looked back at her. When she moved, the shadow would stop. Sometimes, the shadow did things on its own. One day, while Naomi was sitting at her dressing table, her shadow made a choking gesture behind her. And suddenly, her throat started tightening, but no one was in the room. Naomi now understood. Margot's spirit had taken hold of her shadow. Naomi went to the police, but no one believed her. Then a man appeared, Detective Warren Gage. He said he had seen a case like this before, but in that case, the victim disappeared into their shadow. He took Naomi to a place, Margot's old house. Now it was in ruins. Inside, on every wall, something was written: "Shadow is not what you think. She walks first, she stays last." As Naomi stepped inside, she heard Margot's voice. "You let me in, Naomi. Now you will walk behind me, forever." Location: Margot Bellamy's old house, Michigan countryside. Naomi was walking slowly inside the house. The creaking of old wooden floors, water dripping from the ceiling, and black stains rising on the walls. Everything felt less like part of a story and more like a warning. Warren was walking behind her with a flashlight. "Naomi." "Detective, I feel like this shadow is trying to get inside me." Warren. "Margot's spirit never really died, Naomi. Her body was never found, but her shadow, this house was built to contain it. It's a trap." Naomi enters a room, and on the wall, a glowing red line written in blood is visible. "I am free when you fear me." Suddenly, the door of the room slams shut on its own. The flashlight begins to flicker. A gust of wind rushes inside, and Naomi's shadow detaches from the wall and falls to the ground. It's no longer her reflection. The shadow crawls across the floor toward Warren. He pulls out his cross and a pouch of salt to stop it. But the shadow takes a human form, Margot's form. Margot's shadow stands before Warren and whispers, "You burned me once, now I'll choke you," and suddenly, Warren's eyes turn completely white, and his body lifts into the air. Blood starts pouring from his mouth, and his shadow on the wall begins to tremble and burn on its own. Naomi screams. Naomi runs from the house and takes an old cab back to her home. But now, the moment she steps inside, every mirror, every surface shows not her shadow, but Margot. Naomi's face no longer looks the same in the mirror. There are dark hollow circles under her eyes, and her smile, strange, unnatural. When she tries to take a selfie on her phone, it doesn't show her, but Margot. That night, Naomi can't sleep. At midnight, she hears someone singing from inside the bathroom. "Ring around the rosy. Shadow's gonna get cozy." Naomi opens the bathroom door, terrified. The bathtub is filled with water, and someone is sitting inside. Only a shadow. No body, just a shadow. And the shadow looks at Naomi and says, "You are me now, Naomi, and I'm not done yet." The next morning, Naomi is asleep in her room when there's a knock at the door. She opens it, Julian. But his eyes are black. The face is the same, but the aura, it's dead. Naomi. "Julian, where were you?" Julian, in a low voice, "Under the lake. The shadow took me there, but I brought it back for you." Naomi steps back, but at Julian's feet, there is no shadow. His shadow is walking in a different direction, and slowly, climbing up the wall. Julian walks inside and says, "Now it's your turn, Naomi, your shadow will be complete. You'll take her place, and she'll take yours." Naomi screams, but Julian's shadow wraps around her neck. She begins to choke, but just then, scene freeze, and in the mirror, Naomi's eyes turn completely black. Location: Naomi's house, 3:33 a.m. There was silence in the room. Shadows danced on every wall, as if they were trying to say something. Naomi's face in the mirror had completely changed. Her eyes were deep black, and her smile, no longer human. She was no longer herself. Margot's soul now lived in Naomi's body. She picked up Julia's photo from the corner of the room, the girl who first tried to warn her, and on that photo, she scratched a word in red blood with her nails. Next, Julia was lying in her room. She couldn't sleep. Naomi's strange behavior still haunted her. Then her phone vibrated. Naomi's name flashed on the screen. But as she answered, only the sound of breathing, and then a slow, terrifying whisper. "You warned her. Now I'll come for you next." Julia shivered. The phone slipped from her hand. She ran and turned on all the lights. But the moment the lights came on, Naomi's shadow appeared on every wall. On every wall, every ceiling, and each shadow posed differently, staring. The terror grew as these words suddenly appeared on the mirror in Julia's room. "I'm already inside." Julia turned around. Right behind her was her shadow, but facing the opposite direction. Julia's body was facing forward, but her shadow was looking back at her. And then suddenly, the shadow opened its mouth, and entered Julia. Julia collapsed to the floor, trembling, and her eyes had turned black. Now the story turned toward a dark truth. Margot's soul wasn't trapped in a shadow. She was the shadow. A collector. She stole the shadows of those who had once truly experienced fear. Every shadow was her trophy, a life, an identity. But Naomi's shadow was different. Naomi was never afraid of shadows, she was afraid of herself. And that fear made Margot more powerful. Now both Julia and Naomi were under Margot's control. But Julia's soul had not yet been fully consumed. According to an old book's ritual, if someone separates their shadow from themselves and burns it inside a mirror room, their soul can be reclaimed. With the last bit of consciousness left in her, Julia dragged herself into the mirror room located in the basement of an old, broken-down church. But there, Naomi was already there, fully transformed into Margot. Behind Naomi, on the wall, hung a gallery of shadows, thousands of shadows, children, elders, and women, all of them. Julia, terrified, whispered, "Naomi, this isn't you. Come back, you're not this." But Naomi only smiled, and her shadow lunged toward Julia. And then, the ritual began. Julia drew a salt circle around herself and pulled her shadow in front of the mirror. But Naomi's shadow broke through the circle. And at that moment, an old shadow came alive on the wall, Margot's mother, searching for her children. Her spirit let out a long shriek, and she looked at Naomi. "You're not my daughter, you're still that monster." And the moment those words were spoken, all the shadows detached from the wall and attacked Naomi. Naomi's eyes began to turn white, and she screamed, "No, I own you all." Naomi fell to the ground. Her breathing began to slow. Julia ran to her, but Naomi's body was now empty. The shadows had vanished, but one mirror still remained intact. And in it, Julia didn't see herself, she saw Naomi. Naomi's soul was now trapped inside Julia. Julia turned around, and on every wall, once again, appeared the same word written in red blood. "Now you are me." Location: Greenville, South Carolina, a quiet suburb, where fear hasn't knocked yet, but very soon, it will. Julia is now back in her home. From the outside, everything looks normal, the same scent of flowers, the same cold morning breeze, but Julia is no longer the same. Her shadow has now become independent. Sometimes she's washing dishes in the kitchen, and her shadow peeks outside from the kitchen door. Sometimes she's lying on her bed, and her shadow climbs the ceiling and stares. And the scariest part, the shadow no longer needs Julia's control. Julia's neighbor's daughter Lila is just 6 years old, very innocent. She has a habit, every night, she looks at the moon from her bedroom window. But tonight, she didn't see the moon. She saw another face. Outside the window stood Julia's shadow, but Julia was inside her house at that moment. Lila gets scared and calls her mother, but when her mother arrives, there's only a small note left at the window. "I'm no longer alone. She now follows me." The next day, Lila goes missing. Police arrive. Panic spreads across the neighborhood. CCTV footage from Julia's house is checked. In the footage, Julia didn't leave the house. But her shadow, it's moving everywhere. Near the children's swings, on the park bench, and right outside Lila's bedroom window. Julia takes herself to a therapist, Dr. Eloise Grant, who handles unusual psychological cases. The session begins. Julia confesses her fears. "I think I've lost myself. Wherever I go, my shadow detaches from me and goes with others." Dr. Grant smiles. She stands up, picks up Julia's file, and says, "You're not the first. Margot took me the same way. Now you've come to take my place." And suddenly, the large mirror in the room turns black. In it, not Dr. Grant, but an old face appears. Margot's first vessel, a woman whose mouth was sewn shut, and whose chest bore the number of corpses she had claimed. Julia screams, but her voice doesn't reach outside. Now all 4 walls of the room have turned into mirrors, and in every mirror, a different Julia appears, each showing a different emotion: angry, timid, furious, sad, insane, and one who is laughing continuously. Julia is now trapped, but this is no ordinary trap. This is the collector's chamber. Here, all the shadows of those who once ran from fear but eventually became fear are imprisoned. Behind every mirror, a soul is locked, and now Julia must make a choice. Either steal someone else's shadow to free herself, or remain trapped here forever. Julia sees her parents in the mirror, sees her younger sister, sees Naomi, all pleading for her help. But in the end, she sees herself, as a 7-year-old girl, crying from her old fears. And now that little girl's shadow has also separated, and standing behind her is Margot. Julia has now lost her identity, She no longer knows who she is, a shadow, a soul, or just a vessel. And now her shadow has begun to spread. In Greenville's park, playing children suddenly stop. Their shadows begin to grow longer, and start detaching from them. In every school classroom, shadows respond a moment too late. In every home, the reflection in the mirror lags 2 seconds behind the person. People don't die from fear, they start fearing themselves. And now Julia has only one purpose, to erase herself, so that she doesn't consume anyone else. But Margot won't allow that. Margot wants Julia to now become the hunter, and steal others' shadows. Location: Silent Glades Cemetery, Greenville, where even the wind dares not move out of fear. Julia has now become a shell. Her eyes are dim, her body hollow, as if only Margot's shadow remains inside her. But, deep within, a tiny flame still flickers. Julia's humanity. Naomi's final voicemail plays again on her phone. You are not alone, Julia. Even your shadow used to love the light once. Her tears stop. No, it's not over. Julia returns to her old house, the place where her grandmother had died. There, a locked basement holds a forbidden ritual book that had been hidden away. Julia opens the book, covered in dust, written in ancient Latin. It's not an exorcism, it's an acceptance ritual, where a person doesn't fight their shadow but understands it, recognizes it, and merges with it. Because when someone fears their shadow, they separate from it, and that shadow then becomes a monster. But the ritual has one condition. You must relive your greatest mistake, your deepest fear, and your most hidden truth, and then your shadow will decide whether you are worthy or not. Inside the basement, the ritual begins. Ancient symbols, candles, and blood-drawn lines all around. 3 doors appear before Julia. Door 1. The fear of losing control. She finds herself back in the moment when she had left her little sister Molly alone in the bathtub. Julia had thought Molly was sleeping, but Molly drowned in that water. Julia cries, screams. It was my fault. Suddenly, Molly's ghostly figure appears, her eyes white, her entire body soaked. She lunges at Julia, but Julia doesn't run, she hugs her. Door 1 unlocks. Door 2. The betrayal. Now Julia is in a hospital room. A syringe in her hand, and her mother lying before her, battling cancer. She must face the night when she gave her mother the injection herself, to free her from the pain. Mercy killing, but the guilt always stayed with her. Her mother's corpse now rises from the bed, tubes dangling from her body, and says, "You became God, Julia? The one to decide who lives, who dies?" Julia trembles, but says, "I didn't kill you, I freed you." Her mother's corpse smiles, and the door opens. Door 3. The truth of Margot. The final door opens, and Julia enters Margot's real story. Margot wasn't some ancient demon. She was a girl from 1854 South Carolina, with albino skin, a strange shadow, and terrifying eyes. The villagers thought she was a witch, and burned her alive. But her shadow never died, because it was born not of her body, but of human fear. Now Julia stands before the pyre where Margot was burning. Margot screams, "I never hurt anyone, I was just different." Julia looks into her eyes, and for the first time, sees a human, a girl raised in fear. Julia reaches out to her, and the burning shadow freezes. Now Julia stands on a platform rising from the ground. 2 Julias stand before her, one human, one shadow. Margot has now merged within her, but who will take control, is yet to be decided. A voice speaks. Either absorb me, and carry my weight forever, or kill me, and become the shadow yourself. Julia looks at both versions, and chooses her humanity. She hugs her shadow, and whispers, "You are my pain, not my enemy." At that moment, both versions merge. Julia is now a new person, not fully human, not fully shadow, but now, she is in control. But the people of Greenville, their shadows have started to recognize Julia. The fear inside them now leans toward Julia, because someone who has accepted their own shadow, can pull other shadows toward them too. A week has passed since that terrifying ritual. Julia looks the same, but her shadow is no longer normal. When she walks, sometimes her shadow doesn't follow behind, it appears in front of her. For a moment, it stays completely still, and the next, it starts crawling across walls on its own. Julia walks through the town square. Children go silent when they see her, dogs start growling, and the shadows begin to shift away. As if everyone is recognizing, the Shadow Queen has awakened. A woman from the town, Lindsay, approaches Julia. "Please, Julia, my daughter's shadow walks out of the room on its own. I'm afraid it won't come back." Julia says nothing. Her eyes have grown deep, like if you stare into a dark well, you'll only hear your own scream. She looks at Lindsay's daughter, and places her hand once on her shadow. That shadow trembles, then merges into Julia's shadow. Lindsay steps back in fear. "What did you do to my daughter's shadow?" Julia replies in a low voice. "She won't feel fear anymore, but neither will you." Julia is no longer alone in her house. Her shadow moves by itself now, and it has begun pulling other shadows into itself. Each day, someone's shadow disappears in Greenville. But people don't complain anymore, because those shadows that once brought fear are now silent. But when there is no fear, there is no humanity. An old priest in the town, Father Wendell, comes to Julia's house, carrying an ancient scroll. Margot never stopped, and Julia is no longer just Julia. She has become a vessel for that ancient force which feeds on human fear and grows stronger. Inside the scroll, it's written, "The Queen of Shadows rises where fear is silenced, and hope is consumed." Father Wendell says, "The Julia you knew, she now sits quietly inside you, and what walks outside is the Shadow Queen." Julia looks at him, and with a single glance, her shadow burns away Father Wendell's own shadow. The priest screams with his burning shadow, "You are no longer human, you've become the goddess of fear." When Julia sleeps now, she doesn't just sleep. She enters a dream realm, where all the shadows of the town gather in distorted forms. One shadow takes the form of a woman with her neck twisted backward. A child is tangled in his own shadow which is trying to crawl into his mouth. Julia sees them all and she doesn't flinch. She says only one thing. "You all belong to me now." And at that moment, her eyes open. Inside her shadow, hundreds of shadowy faces flutter like trapped souls. One night, Julia sees Naomi's shadow, yes, the same Naomi who had died. But now she stands in front of Julia, like a beam of light. Naomi says, "Julia, you had conquered fear, don't rule it now. You accepted pain, don't become it." Julia's heart shakes. For the first time, her eyes moisten, a final spark of humanity. But her shadow pulls her back and whispers, "Don't you see? Even she is a shadow now." Naomi's eyes turn black, and she too merges into Julia's shadow. Julia quietly murmurs, "I'm no longer just Julia. I'm Julia for all, for everyone's darkness, the last day of Greenville." Julia stands in front of a broken mirror. Her face doesn't reflect, only a moving shadow, dripping darkness from its eyes. Behind her, the town is completely silent. The people are alive, but just bodies, their shadows are now inside Julia. A jeep arrives. Inside are 3 government agents. "Ma'am, we've been sent by DC. They've detected abnormal electromagnetic shadows from this town. Please come with us." Julia simply says, "You're late. The shadows are already in your capital." And one by one, the agents dissolve into their own shadows. On the jeep's window, a name appears, "Welcome to the Shadow Empire." Inside NSA's dark surveillance room, screens are blinking. An analyst screams, "Sir, Portland, Detroit, Phoenix, same pattern everywhere, people's shadows are detaching." Director Howard, "What the hell is going on? Is this some kind of biopsychological warfare?" Suddenly, a female officer's shadow slices out and snaps her neck. Everyone screams. Shadows start spreading like a plague through the rooms. On the monitor, The final message blinks. She is coming. All hail the queen. Julia has built the shadow hive inside an old mining cave. This place is made entirely of shadows, ink-black walls where faces constantly emerge and dissolve. At the center sits a shadow throne, and Julia upon it. A woman is brought before her, scientist Dr. Eliza Wren, the first to understand Julia's DNA. Julia says, "You came to understand me, now the darkness will teach you." Dr. Wren: "You were a human once, Julia. Why are you doing this?" A fragment of Julia's shadow detaches and enters Dr. Wren's head. She screams, her eyes turn completely black. "I see it now. You're not destroying the world, you're rewriting it." Julia smiles. "Exactly. Boston, Miami, Seattle. One by one, cities get connected to Julia's shadow hive. People sleep, but their shadows get up and lock the doors. Then climb across ceilings and enter their bodies. By morning, those people are changed, calm, emotionless, with eyes like black mirrors. They are now called the Silence. These Silence form the first layer of Julia's shadow empire. Beings who have left the world without a sound, yet are still alive. In Los Angeles underground tunnels, a few people are still hiding. Among them, a 17-year-old girl, Zoe, who has no shadow. She had burned her own shadow in a ritual, that's why Julia couldn't control her. Zoe shouts, "We need to stop her. She wasn't born a queen, she was made one. And anything made, can be unmade." They possess an old journal, Margot's diary, which says, "Julia was just Margot's vessel, but even Margot belonged to something else. An ancient entity who ruled the shadows long before." Zoe decides, "If we understand Margot, we can break Julia." Zoe and the Resistance go to an old monastery, where Margot's first ritual took place. There, they find a mural, showing a girl with Margot's face, and behind her, an ancient god of night. Its name, Ulzar, the original shadow. Margot made one mistake, she summoned Ulzar and gave it to Julia. And Julia made that darkness her own, the Resistance realizes. The only way to stop Julia is to summon Ulzar again and take the throne back from her. Zoe says, "To kill the queen, we must wake the god." Amidst the desolate hills of Greenville, inside an ancient cave, members of the Resistance were immersed in a mysterious ritual. The flickering light of burning torches and the echoing chants made the atmosphere even more terrifying. Zoe, with firm determination, began to read the ancient incantation from Margot's diary. As her words echoed in the air, the entire valley began to tremble strangely. Trees started shaking, the ground began to crack, as if the heartbeat of the earth had intensified. Suddenly, deep fissures appeared in the ground and thick, black smoke began to rise from them, as if a long-forgotten monster had started breathing again. Slowly, a terrifying and monstrous figure began to emerge from the smoke, its wings massive and bat-like, eyes like burning fire, yet cold and cruel from within. Ulzar had arrived. Many members of the Resistance began to tremble, but Zoe composed herself and said, "Greater than, we've come to send you back where you came from, but first, we must stop Julia." Ulzar's voice thundered, slow but ground-shaking. "Greater than, you have broken my slumber, now I shall give this world a new face." Elsewhere, the moment Julia sensed Ulzar's awakening, she immediately summoned her shadow army. She stood on a balcony surrounded by dark winds, and her eyes sparkled with madness. She shouted loudly, "Greater than, now erase the Resistance, fulfill Ulzar's will." With her words, dark mist began to spread across Greenville. From every house, black shadows emerged and engulfed the streets. Lightning struck, and dark clouds gathered in the sky. Julia's echoing laughter, "Greater than, the end is very near now." Zoe and the remaining Resistance had only one hope left, Margot's diary. It clearly stated that Ulzar could only be bound with a divine mirror, a mirror that shows the truth of the soul. But that mirror was hidden where Julia was born, beneath Greenville, in a mysterious reservoir. Zoe looked at her frightened comrades and said, "Greater than, we have to reach that reservoir, no matter how well the shadows guard it." The resistance team moved forward through the deserted parts of Greenville. At every turn, black shadows were following them. The whispering voices from between the trees were stirring fear within everyone. The shadows were no longer just attacking from outside, they had started entering the minds of every member, showing them their greatest past fears. Zoe kept steadying herself and her teammates. "Don't be afraid, these shadows live on our fear." Finally, they reached the reservoir, its water deep, still, and black, as if waiting for someone for centuries. Zoe slowly dipped her hand into the reservoir. The water was colder than ice. Suddenly, a shining object emerged from below, the divine mirror. As soon as Zoe touched it, a mysterious voice echoed in her ears. "Can you truly see yourself?" The mirror now began peering into Zoe. It revealed her most private emotions: loneliness, anger, sorrow, and the fear of failure, all came pouring out. Tears flowed from Zoe's eyes, but then she closed her eyes and said, "I accept all of it. I am broken, but I am not alone." The mirror suddenly shone with intense light. Meanwhile, Julia's true identity began to reveal itself. She was Sarah, an innocent girl, ignored by society and family, hurt every day. Ulzar saw the pain and hatred in Sarah's soul and used that very pain to transform her into the Shadow Queen. Julia wasn't just a monster, she was a broken soul, hungry to be understood. Zoe picked up the divine mirror and sent a message to the entire resistance. "Greater than, now or never." Julia launched an attack with her shadow army. All of Greenville had turned into a battlefield, dark lightning in the sky, burning shadows on the ground, and between them, two armies, of light and darkness. Zoe and Julia came face to face. Julia, in fury, lifted shadows to bury Zoe into the ground, but Zoe protected herself with the mirror's light, and controlled Julia's own shadow against her. Now the battle wasn't outside, it was within the soul. Zoe and Julia's souls stood face to face in an unknown realm. Zoe showed Julia her past pain. Julia broke down. Tears flowed from her eyes. "Greater than, I just wanted someone to understand me." Zoe extended her hand. "I understand, and I don't want to destroy you, I want to free you." Ulzar now revealed his true form. His wings spread wide enough to cover the entire sky. He roared, "My goal is not just darkness, I want to rebuild this world in my image." Zoe intensified the mirror's light. Julia now turned to Ulzar. "I was your queen, but I am a human too." The final battle had begun. Ulzar attacked with all his power. The entire area was swallowed in darkness, not a single ray remained. But Zoe's mirror kept shining as the last ray of hope. Julia, using her control over shadows, broke Ulzar's wings. Zoe lifted the mirror and shouted, "End it all now." The light from the mirror bound Ulzar's soul. Ulzar screamed, "Greater than, this is not the end, this is the beginning." As Ulzar was destroyed, Julia's shadows began to disappear gradually. She fell to the ground, but now her eyes were at peace. The first ray of sunlight fell on Greenville. Those who were lost in the shadows began to return. Zoe looked at everyone and said, "After every darkness, there is light. This is not the end, it is a new beginning." It was around 11:30 at night. It was a quiet summer night, but a strange chill was spreading over Highway 50. Jason Hill, a rideshare driver, was waiting for his last ride of the night. This job was his side hustle, but something felt different that night. A ping came through Google Maps, "Pickup, near the abandoned Sinclair gas station, Highway 50. The place was deserted, with no lights for miles around, but he needed the money, so Jason hit accept. When Jason arrived, a girl was already standing there. She was wearing an old black coat, and her face was partially hidden behind her hair. "Hi, I'm Lila," she said in a soft voice. Jason found it strange. What was she doing out here so late at night? But he didn't ask anything. As soon as she got into the car, a strange chill filled the cabin. The air conditioner was off, yet the steering wheel turned ice cold. An eerie silence took over the car. Jason turned on the radio, but every channel just gave static noise. Lila suddenly said, "Turn off the radio." They listened through it. Jason, startled, quickly turned it off. He wanted to ask something, but no words came out of his mouth. After driving for about 20 miles, Jason looked back. Lila's seat was empty. The door was locked. The car was going at 70 miles per hour. So where could she have gone? On the seat was just an old photograph. A picture from the 1960s showing a girl who looked exactly like Lila. On the back, something was written. Eleanor Finch, 1962, died on this highway. Still looking for justice. Jason reported it to the police. Detective Renz didn't believe it at first, but when he saw the photo, his eyes widened. This case was closed. Eleanor Finch, a case that was never solved. The detective explained, in 1962, Eleanor Finch was a 22-year-old college student. She was last seen on this very Highway 50. Her body was found 3 days later in a desert, naked, with strangulation marks on her neck. But the real killer was never found. The next night, Jason got a notification on his phone. Pickup request, Eleanor, near same gas station. He ignored it, but then the lights began to flicker. The TV turned on by itself. On the screen was that same picture of Eleanor. Then another text came. "You said you'd take me home, Jason." That night, Jason locked his car in the garage. But in the morning, he found strands of hair on the seat, Eleanor's hair. Detective Renz reopened Eleanor's old case. The investigation revealed that Eleanor had threatened to file a sexual assault complaint against a local officer at the time. 3 days later, she was murdered, and that officer had since become the mayor of a major city. Jason and the detective began secretly investigating the mayor. At 3 a.m., Jason saw Eleanor's spirit again. This time, there were tears in her eyes. "I just want my truth to come out. I want my name cleared, and I want him punished for what he did to me." Jason found Eleanor's diary in the basement of an old church. It contained everything: names, dates, incidents, evidence. Detective Renz leaked Eleanor's diary to the media. The story exploded instantly. The mayor was arrested. Eleanor's case was reopened in court. Eleanor's spirit appeared to Jason one last time, this time, smiling. "Now I can go. Thank you, Jason." Part 10. Another name in Eleanor's diary. When Jason was reading Eleanor's diary again, his eyes caught a page that perhaps no one had read before. On that page, it was written, "If something happens to me, please find my little sister, Isabel. She knows what happened that night." Jason's heart skipped a beat. Eleanor's sister is still alive? Through Detective Renz, it was found that there was no record of Isabel Finch after 1970. Jason started searching in Eleanor's birthplace, Silver Ridge, Nevada. There he found an old, broken-down cabin, and on the wall, a name was carved: Isabel was here. But there was something else in that cabin, an old voice recorder. As soon as Jason played it, a torn, frightened girl's voice came. "Greater than, I saw it. The mayor wasn't alone. There were others that night. They filmed everything. I don't know how long I'll stay alive. If anyone's listening, please, bring justice to Eleanor and find me." As Jason kept chasing after Isabel, his life became more terrifying. While lying in bed at night, he began seeing the spirits of 3 more women with Eleanor, all with red eyes, lips sewn shut. Fingerprints appeared on the car window. And Eleanor's spirit no longer cried every time. Now, she was angry. Jason realized that Eleanor wasn't alone. That Highway 50 wasn't just a road, it was a hunting ground for those women who were kidnapped, killed, and then disappeared along with the evidence. At the end of Eleanor's diary was another clue: Golden Raven Club. This is where it all began. Golden Raven was a private club, now closed. It was said that rich, powerful people used to hold secret parties there. Jason went there. The club was now destroyed, but in the basement, he found a secret room, where a projector hung on the wall. He played it, and what he saw next, clips of many girls, including Eleanor and possibly Isabel. Everything had been recorded. A demonic game, a dark world. As soon as the clip ended, the basement lights went out. And Eleanor's spirit appeared, but now, she was no longer calm, now she was in her fierce form. The other three spirits were with her. Terrified, Jason asked, "What are you doing now, Eleanor? You got justice?" Eleanor said, "Greater than, I got it, but the others didn't. Isabel is still alive. And saving them is your job. Otherwise, you'll be considered one of them too." Jason was no longer alone, he had become part of Eleanor's group of spirits. But a terrifying truth emerged. The mayor wasn't alone. There were still 4 people alive connected to that club. A famous lawyer, a head of a church, a doctor, and the Nevada state governor. Eleanor's spirit said, "Justice is not revenge. Justice is completion. Finish it." Jason was no longer a rideshare driver. He had become Eleanor's ally, but in human form. Now, his car no longer carried those who wanted to go somewhere. It carried those whom Eleanor was looking for. Every time, a new monster. Every time, a new hunt. And Eleanor says, "Greater than, until Isabel is found, we will not stop." Jason escapes the basement of the Golden Raven Club with the help of Eleanor's spirit. He hears Eleanor's voice echo in his ears. She's alive. Isabel is alive, but she's imprisoned. An old photograph is found, showing Isabel in a nurse's uniform. In the background, the name of the hospital, St. Hollow Institute, Utah. Jason understands. Isabel was declared insane and locked away in a secret psychiatric hospital. St. Hollow appears sealed from the front, but a hidden gate at the back is left slightly open. Jason enters. Dampness, a foul smell, and warnings scratched in blood on the walls. "Don't let them take your voice. I saw them burn her." In one of the rooms, Jason finds an old woman, weak, trembling, and terrified. It's Isabel. As soon as Jason says her name, her eyes stir. "Greater than, Eleanor. My sister. She's here, isn't she? I knew she would come." Isabel reveals that Eleanor's death was not an accident. It was planned, because she tried to expose the horrors taking place inside the Golden Raven Club. Eleanor had recorded a video of what went on in there. But that very night, she vanished, and Isabel was labeled insane and locked in that secret institution. Isabel breaks down crying. "I promised Eleanor I'd tell the world what she found, but I failed her." Jason holds her hands and says, "You're not alone anymore. Eleanor is back, and now we'll finish what she started, together." Now Eleanor, Isabel, and Jason are together. Eleanor's spirit reveals the names of the 4 culprits. 1. Dr. Marvin Clay, now a wealthy plastic surgeon. 2. Father Nolan Griggs, head of the city's biggest church. 3. Judge Randolph Keene, the one who dismissed all the cases. 4. Governor Willard Troy, governor of Nevada State. Eleanor warns them. Greater than, these 4 are no longer human. They've used dark magic to shield themselves. You'll have to walk among them, and destroy them from within. First target, Dr. Marvin. Jason and Isabel use a fake appointment to get inside his clinic. There, they discover a secret room, filled with flesh fragments, video cameras, and locks of women's hair. As Dr. Marvin enters, Eleanor's spirit appears. All the mirrors begin to crack. Machines start running on their own. Dr. Marvin screams. "I only watched, I didn't kill, Eleanor, Eleanor." Eleanor's face, covered in blood, eyes blazing, and she shreds Marvin into pieces using his own surgical machine. Next target, Father Nolan Griggs. Inside the church, everything is calm. But as soon as Eleanor enters, the holy water turns black. And the crucifixes tilt upside down. Nolan fakes a prayer, but Eleanor sees through him. "Greater than, you didn't even spare the children, Nolan. You wore God's robes but served the devil. Isabel pulls out a locket from his robe, with a little girl's photo inside. Eleanor lifts him into the air, drags him through a cloud of black smoke, and slams him onto the church altar. His screams are drowned by the ringing of church bells. Judge Randolph Keene now lives in isolation in the mountains after retirement. When Jason arrives, the judge is sitting in a large library, smoking a cigar. He trembles as soon as he hears Eleanor's name. I dismissed the case because I had orders from the top. Eleanor's spirit appears and says, then go to the top and answer to them there. The entire room turns upside down. Books catch fire. Eleanor kills the judge using his own old courtroom gavel. Governor Troy's mansion is silent, but Eleanor's spirit whispers, this one is the real monster. Troy laughs when he sees Eleanor. You can't kill me. I purified myself, I'm protected. But then, Isabel plays Eleanor's secret recording, in which Troy is seen threatening her. Troy's guards try to stop Eleanor's spirit, but she's more powerful now. Hands emerge from the walls, pulling the guards into the void. Troy shouts, I won't die, you're all insects to me. But Eleanor replies, it's the ants that bring empires down. And Eleanor locks the governor inside his own vault, and burns him alive. The 4 culprits are dead. Isabel holds Eleanor's photo and says, sister, it's time to come home. Eleanor's spirit is finally at peace. A soft smile in the air, she slowly starts to fade. But before disappearing completely, she says, be careful, there are still monsters hiding. If the world needs me again, I will return.